Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. Now while Rocky V was meant to be the end of the series, Stallone felt that there was maybe a little more that could be told, and perhaps they could end the franchise on a slightly higher note. That, and of course the people at large fucking hated Rocky V, but that also put the plans for the sixth movie in jeopardy, as Stallone wanted the film to be done by the mid to late 90s, at that point titling the project Rocky VI Puncher's Chance. But considering the amount of money the studios didn't make on Rocky V, they weren't too interested in greenlighting this project. By the mid-2000s, however, reboots and sequels to 80s nostalgia was in, and Stallone actually got to finish this project in 2006, a little earlier than he wanted at the time, as he originally intended to finish Rambo first. Because it had been so long between installments, it wasn't nearly as easy for Stallone to just put on the hat and say that it takes place right after Rocky V. That and the fact that the man's 60 years old at the time of this filming, the actual story takes place much further than when he was, 35 before? Because of this, a lot has changed between films. Characters in all fronts are much older, several have passed away, and even major landmarks from the Rocky universe aren't there anymore. But one thing that does remain is Rocky's fighting spirit and his knowledge of the truth. That you can solve every problem in your life if you just punch people hard enough. Something like that. Well, I'm just going to dissect the film anyway, so let's take a look at Rocky Balboa and see if it really redeems the series back from the ashes. Or if I'm going to be spending even longer trying to say that, hey, Rocky V ain't so bad if you just look at it from the right angle. The movie does not open with where the last one left off. Yeah, I know I just went on about how long it's been since the last movie, but still, it takes some getting used to. Instead, we're watching a title defense match of Mason Dixon, played by real-life boxer Antonio Tarver.
They're actually pelting the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world with ice.
Establishing right off the bat that even though he's at the top of the world, everyone hates him because the matches are boring as shit. As opposed to the real-life controversy with Tarver where everyone hated him because he was juicing, but that didn't happen for 6 years after this. So the opening fight doesn't do much, honestly, outside of spoiler reveal of the point of conflict later. Either way, we move on to watching Rocky awake for his morning routine, still living in the low-end townhouse from Rocky V, and still hanging out with Paulie. And Adrian, after a fashion. I know it's a drama, but does anyone else have this feeling that the whole Rocky series has been an ongoing sequence of events of the world just telling Rocky, fuck you! Rocky still stops by to see her grave, though, often enough that it said several scenes of him coming back were deleted to shorten the running time. He's still got his son, though, not played by Sage Stallone this time, but our old friend from Stay Alive, Milo Ventimiglia.
Hey, listen, you want to go out and get some coffee?
Kind of behind, maybe later?
As we could all see coming, though, their relationship is on rocky ground because his son is abandoning his family to pursue a business career. Which is another reason why Stallone didn't want Sage to play the part, because knowing that the movies were all semi-autobiographical in some way or another, he didn't want people thinking that there was this actual kind of tension like this between him and his real son. The kid does tell his old man that he'll swing by the restaurant later, though. Yeah, did we mention that? After retiring from boxing, Rocky evidently opened a restaurant in Philly, Adrian's. Here he oversees the kitchen, feeds Spider Rico for free, still played by Pedro Lavelle, and tells his patrons stories about the glory years of his boxing career. So it's pretty much an Italian restaurant playing a constant marathon of Rocky 1 through 4. While this combination of good food and atmosphere seems to have no problem attracting customers, not everyone feels like hearing these stories constantly.
It was, excuse me.
Your son said he can't make it. He said he'll take a rain check, okay?
Further establishing that all that shit they went through together in Rocky IV was completely destroyed in the wrath of puberty. They drive home the sad state of Rocky's life pretty hard at this point, as we see Rocky and Paulie tour locations from previous Rocky films, and remember several highly emotional scenes, one after the other, building and building until the movie is yanking on our heartstrings like crazy.
So you better develop your brain. Never got a chance though because you're left-handed.
Absolutely.
Come on, Rock, let's go.
Wasn't crying. The AC's busted and it's really hot in here. And I sweat out my nose. Paulie doesn't really like the trip down memory lane though, as he remembers being an asshole in those movies.
You treated her good. You had the good times. I treated her bad. I don't have to think about this.
Well, it's not like he's going around and saying, hey Paul, you remember this is where you threw the Thanksgiving turkey out on the lawn and told Adrian to eat it. The point is, Paulie decides enough is enough, and he's not going to chaperone Rocky around memory lane anymore. Ironically, this decision was made right before Rocky decided to revisit that bar they always went to, so, way to go, Paulie. While here, he runs into Marie from Rocky 1, who he doesn't recognize, despite the huge hints she's giving him.
We met a long time ago.
We did?
When I was a kid, you walked me home.
I did?
Well, to be fair, that Marie was played by Jodie Letizia, and this one is Geraldine Hughes, so you can't really blame the guy for not making the connection right away. Evidently, he does realize who she is, despite her role in Rocky V being edited out of the movie. He's also not the only one with a flaky grasp on the past, as Marie has difficulty recalling ever telling Rocky, "Screw you, creepo." Thing is, they're just closing up, so after having his drink, Rocky offers to drive Marie home. It's okay, it's not dangerous. It's merely a means to reminisce a bit more about the changes to the setting, and catch the audience up on where Marie has been all this time. Life was hard, but somehow she made it, and is trying to keep on the straight and narrow to raise her son, even if his father bailed out on him.
You know, he sort of resembles you. He's got that, big Irish hair.
Yeah, it's the other one.
Know that feeling, Rocky? There's plenty of things you can say here. Very few you're allowed to. Fortunately, Rocky does not go full Stormfront here, allowing us to introduce Marie's son, Steps, played by James Francis Kelly III, a name slightly less like a Burger King Kids Club character. Point is, Rocky doesn't want to leave it here, so he invites the two over to his restaurant for a meal on the house. Also, while a lot of this was going on, we got a peek into the life of the champ as he butts heads with his management and in search of honor meets back up with his old trainer, Martin, played by Henry G. Sanders.
What can a champ do for you? You can give me some of that money you got. You know I like you, Mark, but not that much.
These scenes really don't add all that much to the plot. I mean, it humanizes the character and gives him a little depth, but really it's still more outside forces that direct his fate than anything. Those forces being sports commentators, whom showcase a computer-simulated match between Mason Dixon and Rocky Balboa from his prime. It also looks like every TV in Philadelphia is tuned into the station at this very moment, considering at Rocky's restaurant, Mason's mansion, and the bar Rocky Jr. happens to be in are all playing the same broadcast. Two of the three commentators think Rocky could whoop Mason's ass hands down, but it's the computer that has the final say, simulating properly that the match starts with Rocky getting punched in the face and not even trying to block or dodge. However, before long, Mason is driven back by Rocky's teleroboxing powers, and the fight is decided.
Oh, a murderous right hook! And Dixon is out on his feet. He is out cold as he crumbles to the cannon.
I still wish they had the footage where Rocky's character had the bloody mess perk. While this turn of events has both Mason and Rocky Jr. less than thrilled, Rocky didn't even realize a simulated fight took place. He was too busy feeding Marie, driving her and her kid home, then offering the lad a job out of the blue because, hey, why not? His continued showering of kindness culminates in a visit to the animal pound, where Rocky and Steps look around for a dog to adopt.
Hey man, how about this one?
You don't look too friendly, my friend.
Oh man, this is the one. Hey, what are you doing?
Come on, Rocky, it's a pit bull. They're very intelligent, highly trainable dogs. Not mindless killers like most people think, which is why they're practically never adopted. But we're going for an artistically touching animal rescue, so they leave the pit bull to his fate, to instead save the dog that looks like he's going to make it all of 20 feet before it croaks. Naming it Punchy, Rocky and Steps bond in this experience. Oh, but it's about time for him to realize that a simulated fight even happened, so Paulie barges into the restaurant and sits in front of the TV, informing Rocky that they're having a rerun of the most kick-ass episode of Reboot.
Hey, come on, we're about to serve today's special.
Italian food cooked up by a bunch of Mexicans ain't so special, Rocco.
Hey, yo.
Paulie, how could you? We're in Philadelphia. It's a city of brotherly love. They're Puerto Ricans. Eventually the match does come back on, but this time instead of it being shown with people who mostly think Rocky would win, the only voices showcased in this video are those of detractors, saying that Rocky wasn't nearly as good as what he's made out to be, and the computer fight couldn't possibly be accurate.
You know, he owns a little restaurant in South Philly.
What's the specialty? Pounded chicken?
Anyway, I would have paid to see the fight. Next topic, NASCAR and the controversy that won't go away.
Controversy in NASCAR? What the hell happened? Did someone turn right? Rocky the Virtua Fighter inspires Rocky the Restaurateur to get back into the world of boxing. Of course, his son thinks this is just a phase and he'll grow out of it. Paulie is a little more supportive, but is too preoccupied with his meatpacking career to help him train. Either way, their opinions aren't what matters. It's the Boxing Commission's job to determine if he's healthy enough to fight.
The Medical Advisory Board has informed us that the battery of tests to which you've been subjected, you've passed these tests with flying colors.
Yeah, that brain damage from Rocky V? Turns out it wasn't nearly so bad. And no, I'm not upset about this, considering the fact that in Rocky V, the condition he was shown to have really wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. However, the board still denies Rocky's request to be licensed because fuck him passing his medical exams, he's old, so therefore he shouldn't do this as a matter of principle. To which Rocky explodes back a speech about being yourself and fighting for what you are and how he has the right to beat the fuck out of people. Or something like that anyway. The end result is he gets his license. Not sure if that's because he put forth a strong case or just beat the fuck out of one of the judges until everyone just liked him better, but either way. The news of Rocky Balboa coming out of retirement has people fired up, such as Mason's managers, who urge him to take the former champ on and go easy on him so people think he's a nice guy, cause that'll go over wonderfully. He just ignores them and goes back to his old gym anyway. Among the people who don't care Rocky Balboa is out of retirement, we have Rocky Balboa, who is too caught up with trying to help Marie get a better job working for him at the restaurant, even though Paulie would be a much better person to help out right now considering he just got laid off from work. Point is, Rocky eventually remembers that coming out of retirement means actually boxing when Mason's managers show up to pitch the fight to him.
That computer fight got people curious. This could be very interesting.
Yeah, but I ain't interested in getting, like, mangled and embarrassed here.
No, that's not gonna happen. Never happen, no.
Yeah, we'll just go easy on you, because that's what people love in a big fight. Also, it's kind of funny that Rocky came out of retirement emboldened by claims that he couldn't beat the champ, and when it comes to a chance to fight the champ, he's like, no, I have absolutely no interest in this. It ends up taking Marie reminding Balboa that he wanted to fight and came out of retirement to fight, so that's probably what he should be doing to galvanize the man's resolve to face off against both the champ and the very skeptical press, whom Mason has a few choice words for.
I'm the champ.
That's how titles work.
I mean, I get pissed, this guy get hurt.
That's how fighting works.
See you at the fight.
And that's how schedules work. And dies. Now that the press have taken the news of the fight and ran with it, Rocky Jr. shows up to express his frustrations. It pretty much boils down to bitching and moaning that because of his name, he's lived in his father's shadow all his life, but with him retired, he almost made a name for himself. However, this boost of fame as people become nostalgic for Rocky once again has taken a shit on all the progress he's made, so he wants his dad to cancel the fight. In response, Rocky pretty much tells his kid to stop being such a little bitch.
Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody.
And with that line, Stallone probably got this movie banned from playing on college campuses. This rousing speech does get to Rocky Jr. though, and the next time we see him we find out that he quit his office job because it just didn't speak to him. And it's not like he's hurting for money, so fuck it. He's here to support his father through the fight, much like Duke training Balboa and still played by Tony Burton.
To beat this guy, you need speed. You don't have it. And your knees can't take the pounding, so hard running is out. So what we'll be calling on is good old-fashioned blunt force trauma.
Just go into the ring and beat the ever-loving fuck out of Mason with a baseball bat. I mention the actor again because regrettably he passed away February of this year. It's interesting to see him train Rocky and Rocky Balboa though, because at times it almost feels like Mickey with some of the descriptions he comes up with. Still his own character though, and this leads to the obligatory training montage as we see Rocky and Mason both pushing it to the limit, preparing for the climax. And Paulie broke into the meatpacking plant to help Rocky beat this shit out of some sides of beef again. It's the first time I've seen him do this since Rocky 1. I mean, it didn't have to go that far. I would have settled for seeing Balboa beat the shit out of a Happy Meal. With both of the training montages completed at the same time, Rocky teleports to Las Vegas for the fight with Mason Dixon. Also, he's paying Maria well enough that she was able to fly out there with him and has something to say thank you.
I brought you something. I hope you don't mind I took it from the restaurant. Thanks.
Adrian.
I just figured, before the fight, I should do everything in my power to leave you an emotional wreck. Toodles! With that, we move on to the fight, and holy fucking shit, this is a change in tone. The movie changes up to being presented like an actual HBO pay-per-view event.
For the much-anticipated showdown between Mason the Line Dixon and Rocky, the Italian Stallion Balboa.
They go so far as to film it digitally and everything, and part of the reason is because Stallone was having a very hard time getting a venue secured to film the climax in, and eventually they were like, you know what, if they got all this other fights going on, let's just come in right after one of the real fights and just use the cameras they got, film it with a real crowd and everything, and we'll just do it up like a pay-per-view event. And it was like, cool, and that's what we got. That is, most of it. A good portion of the movie is still taking place away from the ring, and of course there's no cameras in the bathrooms. At least I hope not. And the movie continues on with the build-up and the obligatory pay-per-view setup. It's interesting and all, but at the same time it always comes off like the movie's padding for time, despite the fact that it was originally over 2 hours long and got cut to 90 as per studio orders. Nevertheless, the fight begins, still in the pay-per-view format.
Round one begins.
If old George Foreman shocked the world with one punch, why can't old Rocky Balboa?
Maybe it's because he's still starting the fight like every other fight he's been in by just standing there and getting punched in the face. I mean, yeah, it's tradition, but in this one, the actors are actually hitting each other, so we might run into some problems. The first round doesn't go so well, predictably enough. What's a Rocky victory without a come-from-behind victory? Round 2 is where things really start getting interesting, as Mason somehow breaks his hand punching Rocky's buns of steel, and a few body shots later, Rocky sends him to the mat. At that point, the commentators in Dixon's corner collectively realize they're not watching some sideshow exhibition, but a real damn fight.
A giant 2-0 in the ring.
Welcome to Rocky Land.
Except we just finished the second round, so say goodbye to reality and hello to whatever the hell this is. Yes, dramatic fights and all that, I know. Plus, it's not like they didn't pull out the art card in previous Rocky films, but still, holy shit, did they go into an art school and get every fucker in there to direct 1 second each for their final? Of course, things slow back down to sane speeds once the final round comes, and the two fighters are still going at it. They start off barely able to throw punches, but by the end, both of them let it all out and hammer away on each other. Ending the match with both of them still standing. It's been a while since I've seen one of those. Much like Rocky 1, as there was no knockout, the victor is selected by the judges. Also, there is a split decision. Rocky's already leaving before they finish rattling it off, but hey, it's efficient considering the judges decided that Mason won that match, maintaining his title that was never contested in the first place as this was an exhibition match. Rocky's happy with the outcome, though, having shown the world that he still had what it took to go the distance, despite what everyone thought of him. This brings our story to a close with Rocky still talking to Adrian's gravestone. Well, that's mildly depressing. I mean, I didn't think she was gonna rise from the dead to give him a hug there, and if she did, I'm pretty sure we'd find out Rocky still has a mean right hook. But anyway, that was Rocky Balboa. And it did a hell of a lot better of a job, in my opinion, of harkening back to the first Rocky than the fifth one did. Rocky V seemed to try to get Rocky back to his roots by stripping the man of his wealth. Rocky Balboa actually managed to by stripping him of his reputation. Even with computer models showing him kicking all kinds of ass, people still thought he wasn't actually that good, even in his prime, and nobody believed he was capable of standing toe-to-toe with a reigning heavyweight champion. Much like Rocky's Cinderella story with Apollo Creed in the first movie. Aside from that, there's also the fact that they went down the checklist of places to visit pretty early on to re-establish the setting. It also worked as a very effective, if somewhat cheap, method to draw an emotional response out of the audience. The end of Rocky 1 made me almost cry, and the beginning of Rocky Balboa had my eyes erupting in facial precipitation, so Stallone, I gotta hand it to you here. Despite that, the drama aspect of the film does wane as the film progresses. One problem was I never felt all that invested in Mason Dixon. He was a down-to-earth, realistic boxer. That's great and all, but that means he can't be the larger-than-life Superman challenge that Rocky has to overcome. That, and I can summarize most of his scenes as, I exist, I'm upset, and I still exist. Doesn't provide much for the story to grow on. At the end of the day, Rocky Balboa managed to be a Rocky movie to end the Rocky franchise that still feels like a proper Rocky movie. Even if it doesn't end in a very high note, it's high enough and harkens back to the hidden victory from the first film. The fact that it was never about beating the champ to prove yourself, just being able to go toe-to-toe with that kind of punishment and still get up and go the distance is enough. Rocky Balboa does that, and while it's a bit unbalanced and gets weird in places, still holds strong at 4 creatively communicated cranial concussions out of 5. It also feels very much like a movie from 2006. That's not really a bad thing. Every single Rocky movie felt like the time period it was made in, so that's normal. So, thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado, and remember, it's not about how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep coming. Get hit by, say, I don't know, crashed hard drive.
danced around all these problems, you might as well come and dance with me. Now, I ain't that good, but, you know, I'm probably better than the average bear. And where that came from, I don't know.